Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so very much for joining us on this lovely Thursday. It is the third day into the month of September 2020. I almost said October. I don't know. I think I want this year to come to one end sooner than later. Meanwhile, welcome to the show. Just like I did promise you yesterday, that will be coming back so that we can take you through for yet another edition of the first show. Here we are, and very bright, very confident that we are going to give you all the stories that made rounds of headlines yesterday, and it's our job to scrutinize those stories so that we can give you in-depth analysis of what made headlines yesterday. Well, being a Wednesday, being a Thursday, lots of things are going to be happening today, and then tomorrow being a Friday, we can't wait for Friday to come. However, it's gonna be very, very, very hectic and very tiresome for the NRM cadres who are going to be going into their primaries, voting for those who will be holding party flag, who will be voting for flag bearers in the NRM party, for those that will be coming as member of parliament. My name is Simon Chris Makanga. However, I am not doing this show alone. I'm always with a very beautiful lady. I know she can't wait to come on set to say hi to you.
Thank you for introducing me. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Allow me to introduce you, Latifa.
I want you to introduce me, Simon Chris Makanga, because I can ably introduce myself.
Today,
you're overdoing the introduction.
Today being a Thursday, one of my best days, allow me say that I'm doing this show with Latifa
Good morning,
Ahmed.
ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Habari zenu, naomba eti mondoka vizuri na mmelala vizuri. Jina langu Latifa Ahmed, nataka kuwakaribisha na niwakaribishe sana kwa programu yetu inaitwa First Show. Kwenye First Show tunakuwa tunaongelea mengi sana, tokea mambo ya politics, nani amevutiwa, and who has spent how much money where. And then coming back, we'll be talking about, of course, corruption, one of the things that have been marring our country for the past 35 years since the NRM government came in, and the Obote government, and of course the Idi Amin Dada government. All of it, there were corruption. We'll be discussing some of those issues and articulating about them. Good morning, Simon Christmas. Now allow me to say good morning to you.
Oh, I don't know what's the secret behind you mentioning your name, and what's the secret behind me mentioning your name. Meanwhile,
I derive a lot of pleasure in mentioning my own name and not you mentioning my name.
I think
just like the way you derive pleasure in mentioning your own name. Don't you see that?
I feel so good if you mention my name. However, I think you need to adjust and maybe allow me once in a while to mention your name.
I refuse.
Let me hope you're okay.
I am wonderful. This morning came with a breeze that made me realize, as a woman who is growing into womanhood, there's a lot I ought to do for myself and my nation as well. And there
a woman developing into
womanhood. There's a difference between just being a woman and developing into womanhood. The aspect of motherhood being part of the process.
Hey, should we expect something good coming up?
No, not anytime soon. I'm just saying, it's the process.
We pray that process keeps on going until that day that comes.
Definitely.
Meanwhile, welcome to the show, and everybody was just joined us. This is the first show. Shoje tusubira nti egenda kuba ya njawulo nnyo naddala mu bulamu bwo. Gw'omuntu ayagala okumanya ebigenda maaso mu ggwanga wamu ne mu nsi yonna olina kukeerera ku the first show, whereby tukuwa byonna bye weetaaga omuli current affairs, ne tukuwa sports wamu n'abo abaagala okukola business. Bw'oba oyagala okutambulako mu mawanga ag'enjawulo okukola business, weetaaga okumanya dola bw'eyimiridde ne currencies endala compared to the Ugandan shillings. All that information comes live in the first show. Well, I would like to upload those that have just joined us live on Facebook. You are doing a great job. We shall recognize you later on. But for now, leave your comment on whatever topic that we are going to be sharing. And straight away, yesterday, the Lord Mayor, Erias Lukwago, yavuddeyo n'akola press conference n'atangaza ku billion ekikumi ezitalabikako ezabulira mu ngalo z'ababbi oba mu ngalo z'abayake. Well, yabadde bamuwa reporter eyafulumiziddwa ekitongole kya Public Accounts Committee mu kitongole kya KCCA era nga eno yabadde ereeteddwa Minister wa Finance mu KCCA Moses Katabu. Wano Elias Lukwago we yaviriddeyo n'agamba nti n'alagira Minister wa KCCA Honorable Betty Amongi n'amugamba nti agende ku Parliament waabe era n'agamba nti weetaaga okubeerawo akaseera banakyaza eyali Executive Director Jennifer Musisi wamu ne Director legal that is Charles Ouma balabikeko mu Parliament babitebye olw'ensonga nti biliyoni ez'ekikumi ezoogerwako zaali za kukola nguudo era nga zaabulira mu kiseera kyabwe.
Now, this story comes at a time when we remember a lot of us have been praising Jennifer Msisi for the good work that she has been doing in KCCA. And when we look at her period of manning the KCCA as the executive director, that was the period between 2011 to 2018.
Yes.
And a lot of people said she has done an amazing job. And nobody has come to complain about Jennifer Msisi's work during her KCCA tenure. But now we are seeing that during her time, over 100 billion Ugandan shillings was lost in a road construction exercise. Now, according to the report that was given to the Lord Mayor, the road that was supposed to have, how do they call this, the material that was supposed to be put on the road, that was supposed to have concrete put, they put compact maram instead. Now that, according to, you know, the Lord Mayor and the report that was given, now that is where the money got lost. Because of the material that was used, it was stolen. Now the contractor that was supposed to do the work was, for example, you're the contractor, Simon Chris Makanga. Nguterao, the contractor, is taking 500 million Ugandan shillings. But I'm going to pay you 300 million Ugandan shillings and the rest is being exactly. That is what happened in the KCCA case. Now, when we look at such issues, including the NRM elections that were supposed to be held for the special group, and then the money was also stolen. Now, the whole point is each person was supposed to be given 5,000 Ugandan shillings in the special groups elections, but then the money was also stolen. Now, these are the things we're trying to talk about as a country. Corruption Nyagwanga has become too much to the point that nobody respects one service delivery to the people. Nobody respects where the money is supposed to go. Everybody is thinking, for God and my stomach, to what they don't understand is that the money that they're eating is taxpayers' money.
Absolutely.
Money that we have worked hard to earn, money that we're putting in taxes, money that they're now putting in their personal buildings and their stomachs. Simon Chris.
Well, between me and you, we know how terrible or how rotten KCCA is. In the recent past, the president of Uganda has been talking about it. Every time he has addressed, I think in the previous addresses, the president has been talking about corruption that is hitting up KCCA. N'atuuka n'okugamba nti bw'oba oyagala okumanya enguzi weeri tuukira ddala ku muntu wa wansi. Era okusooka ddala omukulembeze gwanga yali yagamba ku bano ba enforcement team, naye kati kitugenza okukizuula nti ng'ovudde ku ba enforcement team ate waliyo bye bayita ba big fish mu kitongole kya KCCA be bakyasingira ddala okulya enguzi. Tulina enguudo nnyingi nnyo mu Kampala wano Latifa, era nga bw'ozituukako omuntu yeewuunya ddala, is this the capital city of Uganda? Or it is a village or a district within the different areas in this country.
Yes.
Chikwewunyisa nnyo nti mulimu ebifo nga Fort Portal bw'obituukamu teweegomba ate nakudda mu Kampala ne weebuuza nti ddala ssente zaaliyo oba tezaaliyo. And I want to thank the Public Accounts Committee mu kitongole kya KCCA abavuddeyo okukola okunoonyereza kuno ne tusangira ddala nti kati omukyala gwe twali tupraisinga ennyo okulwanyisa obuli bw'enguzi naye ate waliwo ssente ezaatuyitangako nga tebalaba.
And the only way to solve this is for her to come back atugambe what happened to that money. How did it go wrong? Where did it go wrong? Because remember, before Jennifer Mtisi came into power, Tujukida Mbuno, the accounts in KCCA were a mess. People had taken KCCA buildings, never defula their own personal buildings. All their operations run in the KCCA buildings. Kati, we are coming to a time when we are saying that the person we thought was a hero for organizing the accounts of KCCA, Kumanga KCCA had over 5 accounts. Zevalina, when money was passing through them. Nazi consolidating, Nazireta Wamu. So all that money came together into one pot, and then now she decided from now on, Essenteza KCCA, Temugenda Zikwata, you employees under KCCA, people are going to start using mobile money, people are going to start using, e-money in passing the money, and corruption in KCCA reduced because it had become a hot spot for people to go and bribe other people or kufuna msente. There are buildings in this particular city of Kampala that have been built. Naenga, the streamlining is not correct. KCCA, bafuna sente out of corruption, bafuna sente out of bribery, and then they give permission to these people to build their buildings, especially the rich people in Kampala, because they can afford to bribe. So they don't have the mapping that they ought to have because they bribed. Kati, Jennifer Mtisi came up and streamlined all these things. Kati, now that we are seeing the sang hero is now becoming the sang thief, is something that we ought to carefully look at. Tulabe, nae Jennifer, all this time tubadde tukuwana. What happened?
What went wrong
on this particular project? You've been doing a lot of good. So what went wrong? As a feminist, as a person who has seen Jennifer Mtisi grow, as a person who has appreciated Jennifer Mtisi's work, and Zendawa tulindeko Bamuite, let her explain. As well, she's out of the country. Let's see what she'll say about this case.
Well, true. I also can't wait for her to appear before Parliament to explain on what exactly happened to the 100 billion taxpayers' money. That's a lot of money, by the way. As we are crying of dust in Kampala, as we are crying lots of issues that are happening within Kampala.
With the slow road constructions that are ongoing. They work until night hours because they are trying to reach the December 31st timeline that was given to them by the KCCA, engineering department. And you're asking yourself, mubadde mulinda tuba pushing like cows and goats for you to actually do our roads, for crying out loud.
I don't know what exactly happens. I think there's need to investigate in exactly how these people do their things, because you can't tell me that you made a pledge or you're given a contract no tugamba nti mu mwaka gumu n'emyezi wegiti oluguudo olujja kuba lukoze eki luwedde. Zino enguudo zitwali twogerako oli omuli Lukuli n'olwewaffe, omuli Kulambiro, omuli Kabuusu, Bunnamwaya, okuli luno oluva Akasha Avenue kuveera ddala eri Bukoto, olwo zonna zaali zaakugwa by December 2019. Tuli mu gwa kumeka?
We're going to
We're
not counting 2020, we're counting 2021. We are counting. Time has gone.
It is now after that officials from KCCA bamala okulambula okwebuuza lwaki enguudo teziggwa. It's now kati batandise okukola misana na kiro.
As we are dealing with the KCCA issue, we are looking at a couple of National Resistance Movement Party administrators who are under police, who have been arrested, and they're under investigations for apparently chopping special interest groups election money. I mean, how shallow can you get to that point that you steal money meant for elections under your NRM secretary or your party, like you're eating the man that feeds you? My mom usually told me, when you're dealing with a person that feeds you, mugende kompola kubanga this person has dedicated themselves okuwa sente. This person has dedicated themselves to make you what you are. Kati, if you're shitting where you're eating, like how do you
see, Uganda and Africa would be very far. But the only problem that is eating up this continent is only that word corruption. And most cases we sweeten it by calling it corruption. But in a muchigambo chitwandebade tuchiita obubbi obuchasi dala okubidala chikwewunyisa nnyo ddala mazima nti n'akatono ke balabaako bakalingiriza ddala nga bagala bakaggirewo ddala money that is meant to accommodate, let me say, 1,000 people. Oja kwesanga omuntu omu, only one person wants to grab that money and
nazimba nyumba.
Absolutely.
Mugaga.
Absolutely.
And then the gap between the rich and poor becomes so extreme that you see Mugaga is flying out of the country for treatment. Alina motoka, abanabe bavuga motoka, bagenda kusomero zamanyi. And for me, a poor person, I cannot even afford to take my kids to Bonabasome.
This has created a very big gap, Latifa,
it has.
between the rich and the poor, and that is only attributed to the fact that a small group, the minorities, are surviving at the expense of the majority. Nti omuntu omu akwata sente zandibadde z'abantu 100 n'azeddiza yekka.
Naye Simon, omanyi abantu people are getting rich in this election time. Ate people have always gotten rich during the election time. The money that is released during elections by the different political parties, yamanyi.
I know.
And if you're careful, you eat money properly.
You also want to eat. You sound like you want to eat. You sound like you're tempted. Like
I will get into politics in the next 5 years of my time.
You would also do what they're doing.
No,
would you do what they're doing?
Given the fact that I'm a journalist who's trying to set the record straight right here on screen and who is trying to let people know that the amount of corruption that is filled in this country is pathetic. Literally pathetic. I don't think I'd do that. It would be hypocrisy of the highest level, and that's what we've been trying to condemn in these studios Monday to Monday. Hypocrisy and not having principles is something that is totally uncalled for our mature political leaders.
Absolutely. Nze kinewunyisa nnyo Latifa nti omuntu afuna omulimu lemise mu KCCA ng'ayingiddeyo talina kyayina n'amala emyezi 3 oba 5 ng'aguze emmotoka azimbye ennyumba awasizza
wajja na kaveera and then you go back with the whole house. You came with a
I've
kaveera.
seen those people. Omuntu agenda mu URA nga talina kyayina myezi mitono nnyo myaka mitono nnyo afuna omusala gwa milioni 2 naye mu myezi gigenda okwetoloola ng'aguze emmotoka azimbye ennyumba awasizza, like they're living a luxury life. Ne weebuuza bo bazijja wa?
Uganda.
Otherwise, what we are saying that corruption has eaten up this country to the fullest, and had we found a vaccine to corruption, maybe this country would be a better place for all of us, and not only Uganda, Africa would be a better continent for us. But for as long as we still have the corrupt people within this country, tetwina jetulaga, and that is the biggest killer disease in this country.
Corruption. I mean, out of that, just Olaba, the small monies accumulate. The NRM issue, out of 5,000 Ugandan shillings that were supposed to be given to every party flag bearer. Banji, those people are many. They're not few, they're many. Banji, and that's the whole point of it. Banji, I tell you, this money, when you look at it, it looks small, and that's where they can steal. Kwanga, they're like, as a sente, nobody will notice this. It's just 5,000 Ugandan, nobody will notice it, and then they take it. They don't know that such small monies, of course, when it accumulates, it becomes big, but to someone who is down there, a flag bearer who is in the special interest groups, as a taga.
I know.
As a taga. So can we not be thieves to the point that we even steal the food from the worm's mouth? At least we should steal food from the eagle's or the lion's mouth, but I mean from the worm's mouth. Can we not go to that level of lowernesness, for crying out loud?
I know.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Anyways.
Well, away from that, let's dive into another story that is making rounds of headlines. And it is one that I know most of you couldn't wait for us to introduce. Eranga sanyo lya manji nnyo eri abasiramu wano mu ggwanga oluvannyuma lwa kkooti ewulira emisango gy'obutujju olunaku olw'eggulo yavuddeyo n'esumulula omukulu eri akulira abatabuliki oba eri akulira abatabuliki wano mu ggwanga Sheikh Yunus Kamoga era n'avaayo olw'ebbanga kkooti eno yabadde ekulibwamu Chief Justice Alfonso Wini-Dolo wamu n'abalamuzi abalala babiri era bavuddeyo ne bawakanya ebyo ensalawo eyakolebwa abalamuzi abasatu mu mwaka gwa 2014 abakola ensalawo eyateeka Sheikh Yunus Kamoga wamu n'abalala 5 okubasalira emisango gyo okubateeka mu nkomyo okumala obulamu bwabwe n'abala kumalayo emyaka 30 wabula olunaku olw'eggulo babadde bakeebakayo okumala emyaka 6 era nga Chief Justice Winnie Dolo yavudde n'agamba nti ababalamuzi abakola okusalawo ensalawo gye baakola baagikola mu bukyamu olw'ensonga nti tewaaliwo bujulizi bumala okulaba nga bakola ensalawo eyo. Katusooke tulabe ebyabaddeyo then tukomewo.
naye okutandika n'olwaleero alhamdulillah kyemmanyi nti nno ekyoleseddwa obulamuzi bwa wano mu kaseera kano tusiimire ddala obulamuzi bwa wano ku ssaawa ku kino ekikyayiseewo.
Twamanya okusookera ddala nti tebaakola misango gino ate era ne tukimanya nti kooti eya wansi yakola ensobi naye ngawe ekooti enkola ya kooti bulijjo wabeerawo esingako ginewaayo amaanyi tekubeera nti kubeera gwa terrorism kubanga terrorism si kintu kitono kivolvinga kukuba bomu kutta bantu kola ki bakasaffe tebatta bantu tebattanga bantu.
naye okutandika n'olwaleero alhamdulillah kyemmanyi nti nno ekyoleseddwa obulamuzi.
Well, we have seen what has happened and we are still seeing what has happened. Sheikh Yunus Kaboga is very happy together with other Muslim clerics who thought that he was a scapegoat of the bloodshed that happened around the killings of the Muslim clerics. We all remember there was a time when there were a lot of Muslim clerics that were murdered, and during that time we had Sheikh Abdul Karim Sentamu, a Muslim scholar who was shot dead in April 2012 in Kampala, and that is when it started. And then around June of 2012 we had Abu Bakr Chiwewa, who was also shot dead by a known gunman in Chanja. And then Christmas Day of 2014, Abdul Qadir Muwaya, the Shia leader commonly referred to as Daktur, was killed while at his home in Mayuge. We also saw 3 days later, Sheikh Mustafa Bahiga was shot and killed at a mosque in Webade in Entebbe Road. Now, these killings continued until 2015 when a gunman shot dead Sheikh Abdul Rashid Wafula in Mbale town. Now, the thing about these killings that were happening among the Muslim clerics was that it happened all over the place. It wasn't systematic, it wasn't organized, but we would see that Muslim clerics from all over Kampala, from all over Uganda were being gunned down each and every day. Because still in 2015, we saw the gunman kill Sheikh Ibrahim Hassan Kiria in Wayogerere, Wakiso district. And people asked themselves, what is going on? And with the bloodshed that was shed, everybody was looking for a scapegoat. Everybody was looking for someone who would be taken behind bars for this particular crime. Now, the people who were released yesterday and said that they were set free by the jail that sentenced them to life imprisonment are going to be free. Now, Simon Chris, the thing about this case is that it's going to, a group of Muslims are going to be happy. But another group are going to be very, very sad. If you look at the category of Muslims that were killed during that time, there were people who made contributions to the Islamic religion and people who made contributions to the improvement and development of Islam. People who had studied enough of secular and religious education, and those were the people who were gunned down. Islam lost a lot of important people in its history, and we all cried, people or culprits must be found and punished. Now, for these people to have had this particular sentence revered or referred and now they're free is going to hurt a lot of people, Simon Chris.
That means
when blood is shed, we need someone to pay for it. When you don't have someone to pay for it, the victims are not going to be satisfied with the courts.
I think with this particular case, now if this Sheikh Yunus Kamoga and the rest have been set free, that means that And the reason for them being set free, according to the judges that sat yesterday, they said there was no clear evidence that the Seka Kamoga and the rest were involved in the killings of those Muslims. And then that means that there's going to be fresh investigation in what exactly caused the killings. And then that will mean that whoever lost someone during those killings, they still demand for justice.
Lost people, Sam and Chris. How long have these guys been in jail? How long have the investigations been going on? Why did we center our investigations on those people if we know that the evidence was not good enough? Now, when they were sentenced to life imprisonment, they were sentenced by the war court in Uganda. Now, they re-appealed on a lower court, and then they were set free. Simon, when we look at these things that happened, when we look at the fact that a lot of Muslim clerics were gunned down at that time, a thing that people looked at as, how do I put it, terrorism against Islam in Uganda, we are trying to see that whoever was responsible for this is put to book, okay? And we're having the one person that we thought was responsible, the one person that was apparently or allegedly put as a scapegoat for the main people who did it, being set free. It reminds me of the genocide in Rwanda, where a number of people were killed, okay? Over 1 million people were killed in the Rwandan genocide. And then the culprits were found, right? But till now, there are still scars in the hearts and even on their bodies of the victims of the genocide. And people are still trying to make sense with what happened in Rwanda. People are still trying to understand. People are still trying to come up and forgive the people who hurt their loved ones. And this is something that is happening with the Sheikh Kamoga Yusuf issue that is going on right now. And the fact that he has been released is going to start a whole trend of a new wound among Muslims in Uganda. Chichi, why is it that we have failed to investigate cases like we ought to?
Latifa, let me tell you the truth. And I stand to be corrected if I'm wrong.
Yes.
However, one thing that I do know is that some reports may not come out. Some reports may not come out during this regime. Some of the evidences will come after a certain regime. Some evidences come out after a certain regime has gone.
And that's why Tabagala kuva kuntebe.
Leave alone that. Leave alone. In this particular case, I want fresh investigations to be done. However, when you also look at the other side of the coin, you have arrested someone or you've sentenced someone for now 6 years in jail. Lots of life has been lost. You think about the families of those that were sentenced. You look at businesses. How much damages have you caused to that person? Now, after 6 years, court comes out.
Simon Chris, who got hurt more is my question here. Because we're looking at 6 years imprisonment. Say they did it. We don't have evidence that they did. But those were the people that we had in our hands. It's like someone came into your house and broke into your house, okay? And then you find your TV with someone. You're going to arrest him as the first suspect to lead you to the rest. Sichecho. Exactly what is going to happen. Kati, you're going to stick on that one until you find the truth. If you don't find the truth, ogenda kufira kuoyo, because now that is the only evidence you have. And at the end of the day, when they were arrested, some of us who had our families killed during that time had a little bit of a sense of peace, and we're like, at least Baba Kuteko, at least there's, you know, there's something that is being done. But now they have been set free. What does it mean for the very many Muslim clerics that were killed for Islam as a religion, and also for the families that have lost their dear loved ones? Now, you see, the killings were very funny and very, to the point that they were writing notes and throwing it and saying, today we are killing Sheikh Blab. It also happened with the members of parliament.
The list had about 11, it had about 11 or 12
and people were killed.
Yes.
People were killed. And there's no reason for them to be killed. That way, there was no attachment on who was killed on what basis. And that's one of the reasons that the court let these people go. Because the killings were indiscriminatory. They were not aligned in a certain way to make it become a sort of a terrorism attack.
The one that I remember so vivid was Hama Chigundu, the one that was gunned down at Masanaf. As you're heading towards Busega, that was the most one it's the most recent one that is still vivid in my head because I captured that story. And one thing I also do remember is that the killing was always the same. And it gets us wondering that where do they get the guns?
Apart from the guns, the professionality that these gunmen had, one shot to the head and you're done and you're gone. There's really a lot of evidence that was left untapped in this particular case. There's a lot that was left unsaid. And at the point when these guys are being left free, we are wondering, Kati, what is going to happen? Because we're at a position where the moment these guys are left out, after 6 years, because people said they were scapegoats,
but Latifa, let's pick the realities. Let's pick the realities.
Are they going to look for more evidence to put
Let's pick the realities.
Case is dead,
these are civilians, okay, that don't own any guns. Okay?
I can hire a gunman to do my job. I don't need to be.
This goes out to our security. This goes out to our security. And I know how security operates when it comes to public relations. They tell us what they want us to know, but not what we ought to know. So, who owns guns in this country? Between me and you, we know who owns the guns. These are civilians. And they know where one question that comes into everyone's mind, do we have capacity to investigate what gun was used to kill somebody? Do we have capacity to investigate where the bullet came from?
All those were investigated.
We have guns that
were
guns. We assume that guns in Uganda are registered. Okay, do we have capacity to do that kind of investigation? I don't want to. These people were arrested as suspects.
Yes.
Now they were sentenced to life imprisonment. The story is it's a bit confusing because any layman would want to sit down and analyze this. However, botuka kuntiko yacho nawe chikusobera newebuza babikolanga batya.
Why would the War Crime Court put them under life imprisonment if they didn't have enough evidence? I'm not understanding the
What is challenging is where I was heading. Abalamuzi omwali bali abalamuzi basatu Pase Tuhaise, Jen Chigundu, Ezekiel Muhanguzi. They were the three judges that sentenced Sheikh Yunus ku life sentence. Then after 6 years,
he reappealed.
They reappealed, and then Chief Justice wamuna abalamuzi abalala basatu ne bavayo ne bakuba ebituli mu nsala weeri gye baali baasala ne bagamba nti bali babisala bakola ensobi mu kusalawo ne bagamba nti tewaaliwo bujulizi bumala obukakasa nti bano bakoze ki be baali involved mu kutta abasiraamu, therefore they are set free.
Let me tell you what happens in the system
one question
Uganda.
comes in, is the judiciary independent or not?
Let me tell you something
compromised or not?
That is happening in the system of Uganda. The police, who is supposed to carry the investigations, does not work hand in hand with the judiciary. Or the police who is going to carry out the investigations is a police officer who may not have finished his university or bachelor's degree. He has gone into training, and this is the guy who is being sent to look for evidence on that particular case, okay? And he's working on his own without working with the lawyers or judiciary to find out, Kati, how is the case being aligned? Okay, what are some of the evidences that I'm supposed to look at? What are the exact points that I'm supposed to base my investigations on? Those things are not worked on. He's working independently, and then he brings the report. Now, if I am the person who committed that crime, all I have to do is bribe that policeman who is investigating that report and tell him, Vika, all that evidence. And that evidence is covered. You will never find it because the person who is in charge of the investigations actually messes up the investigations. And this is what has been happening in the court system in the country.
I know.
So at the end of the day, for me, this case is particularly dead and gone.
That's what I'm telling you. That's why
I believe the victims of this case are now at a point where they have to be satisfied with the 6 years that have been given to the scapegoats of the killings of the Muslim clerics in this country.
That's why I told you, Latifa, as we exit from this topic, that some of the evidences may not come out during a current regime. some evidence has come out when the regime is gone. Let's leave it at that. Meanwhile, for those of you that have just joined us, it is a good morning and thank you so much for doing that. This is the first show where we discuss stories that made rounds of headlines, not only just discussing, but we give you a deeper analysis according to us. And that was our clear analysis to the Muslim clerics that were released yesterday. Away from that, yesterday was also quite huge, where we saw elections that were held yesterday. Okulonda kwa abavubuka mu district level. Weeks ebbiri ze tukubye mabega waliyo okulonda kwa special interest groups. Kora ku Monday eri ewedde waliyo okulonda kwa abavubuka at the village level. So naku lweggulo wabaddeyo okulonda kwa abavubuka at the district level era nga babadde balonda aba councillors LC2. Okulonda okwo kwenyigiddemu emivuyo mingi nnyo era nga neti ya gas mu bitundu ebimu yavuddeyo n'anyooka. Kasooke tulabe ebyavuddeyo then tulyoke tukomewo.
Abali ku ddaala ly'obwa LC ey'okubiri wabula ebimu ku bitundu bino tebironze olw'obuvuyo obubaddemu nga muno mmwe muli n'eb'ebitundu by'omuluka gw'eggaba.
Twazze twetegese okulonda naye bafubye okulaba nga bakola ki batulemesa okulonda naye kyonna kye bafulaninga tugenda beera wiringi okwewaayo tulina okuddamu akabeera tugenda.
Poliisi ebaddewo mu kifo kino okukuuma eddembe era obwedda abantu abatali ku nkalala z'abalonzi n'abo obwedda abambadde elangi z'ebyobufuzi tebakkiriziddwa kuyingira mu kifo ewabadde walondebwa era n'abamu ababadde baleese effujjo balabiddwako nga batwalibwa ku kabangaliza poliisi wabula tukakiddwa okuggyamu ebifaananyi bye tubadde tukutte. Abalonzi b'ekibiina kya National Unity Platform balaze obwennyamivu eri poliisi ku ky'okukwata abantu baabwe bo kye bagambye nti kikolwa kya kubatiisatiisa.
So embeera yonna etuusewo embeera ebadde setting okuva ku bakulu bennyini ab'ebyobuyinza kubanga balese security abasirikale abasooka mu 20 naye nga tekubaddeko n'omu abadde akuma register bonna babadde bali mu kifo kimu tekubaddeko n'omu asembera kuma register ng'ekintu kipange ow'ebyokulonda nga kimupange n'abo aba NRM.
Eriwonze kitegeera balwanagana abamu badduka kati sinnategeera kikiriwo olw'ensonga nti teeka tuteredde so kati abazadde bonna balina abaana baabwe batandika okuba nga babasomesa.
Tusobodde okwogerako n'omu ku bakwatiddwa ku ssimu kansala w'ekitundu ky'eggaba omwami Bale Joseph n'atunnyonnyola embeera ebaddewo era n'ategeeza nga kino bwe kibongedde amaanyi nti era bagumu nnyo.
Kansala Bale Joseph Waniko w'eggaba abadde agenti w'abavubuka afa abantu bavuganya ku LC2 atukwatiddwa era twalibwa ku poliisi ekabalagala ekituvunaanya kubeera ba agenti b'abantu baffe bagenda okulondebwa tulina musango tubadde violent tulina kye tukoze nitwotegeeza bannayuganda nti bagume enembeera ejja kuggwawo yakiseera buseera tujja kupowa kino kitwongera bwongezi maanyi kubanga omuntu akubye ekikalu atalina kyakoze ali smart aze okubeera agenti w'omuntu we omukwata talina kyakuvumye talina kyagambye.
Oluvannyuma abakakiiko k'ebyokulonda batandise okusoma amannya gaabo abagenda okulonda wabula eyo gye waviiridde omuvubuka atategeerekiseeko mannya bw'abadde agezaako okuddusa enkalala z'abalonzi olwo n'addukira ewabadde bakuumaddembe okwetaasa era awanidde watono nnyo okukubibwa abalonzi.
Bagamba bategese omuntu wa NRM omuvubuka jabbewo byalafu mu biki bwe bamala okubbawo gundi bayiwa akalulu bagende balangirira aba NRM fenna kyemulaba wano kyebatukola bakitukola nti babadde kipange nera polisi
abasirikale abamilitale bakuba abaana bakayiye bamukutte ate nga tetulina musango twabonedde amateeka era paka akalulu bakayiye
mukudduka adusadde wali security lwakuba kyamukisa mubi security nemukwata okubuzaabuza embeera nga naffe tutuuse mu budde okusobola omukwata so presiding officer yekwasiza kimu mutasobola genda na register maaso kubanga bagifunyiza n'ensonga ey'okubiri nti tuli babuvuyo so nga badagezako kola obuvuyo wa NRM babadde bali abantu 15 nga ffe tuli abantu nga 7 so balabye nga tebalina ngeri yonna gye basobola kukolamu kuwangula kalulu kano other than okulisorganizinga ne bateekawo ki akajagalano.
Era wano we wavudde akacyankalano olwo abakulira ebyokulondesa mu kifo kino ne basazaamu okulonda nga bagamba nti tebakyalaba amannya g'abalonzi kubanga mbu enkalala z'abalonzi zibadde ziyuziddwa ekintu ekijje abawagizi ba NOP mu mbeera nga bagamba nti kino kibadde kipange.
Kyannaku nnyo mbufe abavubuka obuzibu bwaffe tubadde tumanyi buli muffe wabula ate ebinene ebisinza okwonoona kife abavubuka. Twesanze mbu presiding officer akutte foomu n'agamba mbu eri ttoni naye nga foomu ekyali very clear asobola okusoma ekirimu nakipresenting erifu abazze okulonda nga ffe bayuth kuba tulina position zaffe zetugiddeko nze nga wa independent nzize tujje tulondegero kabeere fair.
Kyenkubiriza abavubuka mu ggwanga lyonna kubanga naffe tugenda kubanga tubijja mu kitundu kino ekyagabane kansaana bakkirize nti be tulina okusituliza banasiga obukyayi banasiga empembe.
Oluvannyuma poliisi efulumizza abalonzi mu kifo kino era balabiddwako wabweru w'ekifo kino nga balaga obutali bumativu. Edith Nabagereka, STV Select ey'enjawulo.
Edith Nabagereka for that report. Now, when we look at what happened in the youth elections on the 17th of August 2020, that's the first youth elections that we had, we see that again they were marred by violence, they were marred by arrests, they were marred by tear gas, and a lot of people also had chaos. People were fighting from the different political parties. Now, when we look at what just happened recently, especially in Kabale, we're looking at the fact that now this youth said that their names were again missing in the voter register. Something that we saw in the first elections, and we thought they were going to be dealt with in the second one. And we have the third one that is going to come. That's the national level of the youth elections. And we are hoping that this will be dealt with. Because if this is not dealt with, we're going to have the same situation of tear gas. Now, in Kabale, what happened was the NRM officials versus FDC and the other political parties. Now, the FDC youth allege that when they saw that the numbers were going high of the NRM, of the FDC personnel, given that they won the NRM personnel who was going into the youth elections, they told the youth, NRM youth, to boycott the elections and not vote the other seats. Now, they say the Electoral Commission in Kabale stopped working until the NRM youth came back to vote. Now, we're looking at party differences. We're looking at the very many fights that we've had range from one, names of this youth missing from the voter register. And that means that even the elections that are ongoing, the results that are going to come out of these elections are going to be looked at as rigged results. Because you cannot have over how many 1,000 youth missing on the voters register and then think the elections are free and fair.
Never.
And then we're looking at the fact that now, in the story that we've just seen, one youth took the voter register
This is Uganda. And if I told you that if you want to have fun in Uganda, you don't need to go to a cinema. No. You don't need to go to a theater. You don't need to watch movies. Just stay home, watch STV News.
The elections in Uganda.
Just follow whatever is happening in Uganda. It will be enough for you to laugh.
Look, we're not organized.
Absolutely. During the concluded elections, youth elections, we won the same set.
Yes.
And we said that we said that let this be a testing ground for the Electoral Commission. We can't afford to have elections where people's names are missing. You get it? We can't afford to have election where people are line up and then they're like Togenda Kulonda.
Togenda Kulonda.
Absolutely.
There, your name is not there. You're not going to Kulonda. I will walk in. I will throw barriers. I will go and I'll tick the candidate. At the end of the day, it's my right to vote.
Absolutely.
Why am I not on the voter electoral commission? Why are people missing on the voter? Why was the voter register closed in December 2019? We are in 2020 going to 2021. A lot of youths that have just made 18 years are going
every
to
single
miss
day
on the voter register.
Every single day a person turns 18. There's a person that turns 18.
Why are we closing the voter register?
I think that's a question should go to the Electoral Commission. There's the need to update the voters register every single day, because every single day wabawo muntu aweze emyaka 18.
Ate we bagamba tetulina sente, we don't have money
they have
to
a budget,
do this, and then we don't have time because we are
shillings.
organizing the general elections.
Latifa, Electoral Commission is working on the budget of 846 billion Ugandan shillings. So we can't afford to listen to that kind of excuse that we do not have money to correct our voters registers. No.
It needs to be corrected.
And by the way, when you look at one of the reasons as to why there is chaos during these elections, one, there's lack of civic education. It is so minor to listen to the fact that one comes out, Nagamba, I'm a youth, but is 38, clocking 40. Ninga vude agamba, I'm a youth, I have to vote. You get it? So there's lack of civic education. Neba walo katambike tuwake bakwata abana bafa bamawulire. Ngomu yavaayo agamba nze ndi muvubuka nina okulonda nina emyaka 37 nina okulonda ndi muvubuka. So there's that lack. It was a big fight between that fellow and the police guy. Eventually tear gas navaayo. Tuono na resources simply because
tear gas maker. Natwagala nyo tear gas. What's our budget on? You know, for everything small that happens in the country, for tear gas to be that solution for everything small that happens in the country is very sad.
Latifa, nakuwulidde katrika kali oku tear gas neto nakategeera. Nakugambye tear gas wabeera. Whoever is involved in that yasinga ofunamu. Nakuwadde example y'eggulo ne kugamba nti bw'obanga Bobi Wine ani ajalaga ne bakuba tear gas, Bobi Wine yafunamu. How? Bwe bakuba tear gas, omuntu atali involved in that process or procession abuuza ate tear gas bakuba waaki nti Bobi Wine waali ate Bobi Wine akoze eki nti ayagala kwesimba okuki kuba president. Bobi Wine ajja kuba president kale tujja muwaka.
Nayo manyi, the more tear gas they use, the more money we are using to buy more tear gas. Because in the general elections that are coming, we are going to need more tear gas than this. If this small youth
this is a testing ground.
You know, having such violence that is marring their elections, what happens in the general elections when you have big people voting? I'm very skeptic about the election that is going to happen. Very skeptic. Look at what is going on, Simon Chris Makanga. There's no
amidst the pandemic. This is what exactly is happening. Yeah.
The police is running
this is our
youth.
Police.
The youth are running and hiding behind cars. Can't we have a voting process that is as organized as Burundi? Of course, they also had their issues. But as organized as that, abantu bagende mukuba akalulu muveyo tukole ebirala. Let's push the country forward. Let's vote for the people that we want. I mean, if we mar these elections with violence, what is going to happen? We're going to fail to vote the people that we want. Kuwanga Simon Chris, if I start hitting people and throwing stones at the police, that means I have not exercised my rights. I have not voted. That means the person that I wanted is missing one of my votes.
I know. I know.
So there's a lot that should come from civic education, like you have said. Voter civic education, the leaders civic education, and all that. And again, we have a small, minute issue that is causing this kind of violence that is wasting our tear gas in the country.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, the smallest issue is my name is missing in the voter register and I want to vote for the person that I want.
All this chaos goes back to the Electoral Commission. That we need them to correct the voters register.
No, they need to. That's the only solution we have. If
only this small election can get the country disorganized to that extent, what will happen to the national election? What will happen?
Simon, being a journalist, omanyiti yaga saluma.
Yes.
You
should have been a doctor if you didn't want to test tear gas.
Cut your via from the studios. You go and you're covering the youth elections. Tear gas. And we've also had that during that particular session, journalists were intimidated as well.
Absolutely.
And it has happened in all elections that when we are present to cover the story and bring what happened to the people, we are beaten, we are tear gassed, we are hurt. We need to work together with the police, not against them, not against us. So a journalist has a camera and is recording what is going on. And then you as a police or Jano Mugamba delete that footage from your camera. What right do you have?
What does it mean?
I as a citizen journalist can hold my phone and I have the right to record what is going on to any TV station. You don't have a right to tell me to delete the footage.
Whatever is chibakola chiri illegal.
Exactly.
On whose commands are they working on? You understand? Ani aba commands ezo okujja to behave the way police behaves. On whose orders are they working on?
That's tear gas.
Even a small thing,
that tear gas
rubber bullets
they
have
use.
to come out, tear gas has to come out, live bullets have to come out. On whose commands are they working on?
On whose money?
Leave alone money. Whose commands? Otuko kugamba journalists, nozijako camera, nongamba nti deleting buli kimu kyobadde okutte. I mean, where's the freedom that we always talk about?
Exactly.
Where's the democracy we always talk about here?
Exactly. And you cannot say that this particular journalist abused their freedom to report this story because they're exercising their right to report this story to the people. There has been violence. The youth are being violent. Can we deal with the violent youth and not with the others that are voting? Omani, one thing that the police doesn't understand is that if someone is being violent in a particular place, speaking of violence, before I complete my statement, Omani Jose Chameleon came up with a song about the tear gas.
Hey, I heard about it. This is Uganda, where everything is possible.
I like the creativity he has. Now, back to what we were saying. Take out the youth that are being violent at that particular moment. But jail, take them to prison. Safety from the rest of the people who are exercising their rights. Remember, the people who are making a lot of noise are the ones that are not on the voter register. And they have the right to make that noise.
Absolutely.
Yes. They have the right to make that noise. So take them away from that particular place. Let the rest continue with the voting. Release them afterwards. That's the easiest. Now, Kuba tear gas, you're disorganizing the whole voter process. And then later on, you're bringing us results that NUP won in this particular place. How are we sure they won?
Absolutely.
How are we sure there was no vote rigging while everybody was running around with tear gas? There's a lot that is being questioned in this process.
It's their right to vote, and how sure whether they voted, and how sure are you that won't take a break? For now, the fight show returns in a bit.
Bampita Dr. Franklin Mondo Mugisha wano ku STV biri ku machakera nange nga twogera ku nsonga ez'enjawulo engeri okwezimba mu ggwanga lyaffe engeri okuzimba gye tubeera gye tuva wategedde obwavu lwa kibuluma mikwano gy'abaavu baani otambula otya osula otya okusalawo okwo okw'obulamu kutandikira ku nfunayo emikwano gy'abagaga n'abaavu tusobola ogitegeera wano ku STV tugenda kwogera ku nsonga z'abaslay queen tutambula tutya kukyusa omulembe gw'abawala baffe kubanga bafuuka bavunaanyizibwa era nga bakozi nga banoonyi ba kikumi tugenda kwogera ku bakanyama bazimba batya emibiri y'omubiri bwe gulimu ssente oba bwe bulamu bwe twetaaga omukazi tasobola kuleka musajja w'emmotoka mukaaga mbwakute akwate 6 pack amufune mbubatambule naye wano ku STV Big Network. See ya.
Abalamuzi babagamba if the incumbent president frustrates all democratic means to leave power temusibayo muntu n'omu ku treason. This is why Besigye is released. Museveni ekibi kyalina talina mawulire nawandika n'ekitabo kyange the role of witchcraft in a malicious society sapule njijjamu
noyingira essabo
katonda wa bujja nze katonda w'obujja bw'oba olaga eri sapule twekitwala omusajja omubbi bamujja ewuwe ewaka kabanga lyezi ne bamujja ewuwe ewaka yabadde mu ttooyi naye tebamukiriza na tusanatayizi bamutadde butese mu piikaavu ba mu state house naye omukyayina bwe yawulidde nti ono bamukutte yeesinze kiwi yayitiddeko yadduse ng'omuddugavu.
Once again, and thank you so very much for joining us. For those of you that have just done that, this is the first show. My name is Simon Chris Makanga, and we are taking you through other stories that made rounds of headlines. But before we do that, let's dive into Perspective 2021, where we flash a light on different candidates that are willing or that are interested in taking over different political positions in this country. So for now, let's look at Mayor Balimwezo ayagala yegwanyiza okujja kuba member of parliament in Nakawa. Let's take a look at him and then we'll be right back.
Nakawa njagala okwebaza STV olwokuba nti ezze wano okumbuuza ebibuuzo webityo nti ddala abantu bakoledde ekimala, naye njagala okusooka okubuuza STV kubanga manyi nti erina programs z'abantu ezinyumya ate eri eziri ku eziyamba omuntu wa bulijjo. Gwe kuggwe okusinziira ku byabadde mukwata ku mawulire ngezezaako okukola ng'omukulembeze neyanzizza owa STV akkiriza nti ngezezaako okukola n'okutuusa obuweereza eri mu bantu kubanga badde batukwata badde balaba emirimu gye tukwata. Bulijjo buli woolaba nga waliwo abakwesimbyeko omanya bumanya nti waliwo gap. Wobeera omukulembeze n'olaba nga bangi bavuddeyo, manya nti oli munafu. Naye bulijjo olaba nti obadde mu kifo ne bagamba tetujja mulumba, manya nti ekyo ekifo ino kivaamu ogende mu kirala, naddala nga gwolaba nti ate waliwo obatakoze bulungi. Nga meeya sajja mu bukulembeze kubanga nali njagala nsimbi, ndi engineer, nali musomesa mu University y'Ekyambogo, nze engineer wa Ssaabasumba Cyprian Kizito Lwanga, ndi consultant, nze badde ku Namugongo, era musajja wa Kabaka, musajja wa Katonda yali ansasula bulungi. Sente zesifuna na wano ontegera bulungi nnyo, wano nfuna sente ntono ate nazo ne zigwera mu bantu. Ndi mu buweereza kubanga ndi musajja anyigiriziddwa bad decision making. Ekyandeeta mu bukulembeze nali nvuga pikipiki nva Kololwero, ekinnya kyali mu kkuba awo erugogo ku bitaala awo, nze ndi ku main nzira Jinja, emmotoka neva ku lugogo bypass nenkuba ng'ekina ekinnya nenkasuka waggulu okukka wansi okugulu kwange kwali kunvuddeko. Nali engineer, nali muto nga nakamaliza okusoma, nzijukira nali ntandise n'okugula amabaati ngenda kuzimba nnyumba yange. Era ku lunaku olwo nali ngenda wa kitange ne mmange kubatwalira ku kyakulya, si lwakuba nti tebalina, naye buli weekend fe abaana tutera okugenda okulaba bazadde. So ekyo okugulu kwange okuvaako, namala awo essaawa nnungi bbiri nga siyambiddwa nenfuna kyebayita trauma. Trauma yali egenda kunzita, era awo nafunirawo kyebayita gas gangrene, it's a multi infection. Emulago bampita kawonawo, bampita miracle. Ngamba lwaki tebakola decisions ezokulaba nti bakola enguudo. First and foremost, lwaki ekinnya ekibeera mu kkubo ne kikola effujjo, ekinnya ekyo kyatta abantu 20 in 2 months. Kira kyekimu wafiira ne bbawa Reina Kafiye mukyala ali wa Dipinyo, bawo yali muzungu avuga Land Rover yafunira accident lwa kinnya ekyo nafa. Nzijukira nti abasumba baavayo basabireko awantu awo nti waliwo omuzimu ogutta abantu. Ontegera bulungi nnyo, naye nga tuwali muzimu yali poor decision making. Neŋŋamba ndowooza nina okuyingira ebyobufuzi ndabe nga ate nziiza obubenje okubeera mu bitundu byaffe. Twagala obuyinza budde wansi, tulina emirimu gye tulina okukola gye tutasobola kukola kubanga tebatuwadde bikozesebwa. Ontegera bulungi, nze byonna bye mbadde nkola ebisinga obungi mbadde ndobinga international community. Kati wenjogerera Abajapani balina bye bagenda okunzimbira essomero lya Balimwezo Community Foundation, kusomesa baana bya mikono. Aba Korea Global Social Economy mwekwentuula ku lukiiko lw'ensi yonna kulwanyisa COVID ono balina bye baagala okunkolera. Ontegera bulungi nnyo. So ndobinze European Union yavayo nemaze okusomesa abaana skills, vocational skills. Nengenda nenjisaba sente abaana bwe startup capital, buli mwana bamuwa $15 million. Bana balina cottage industry kiri wano kamu Nakawa. Lwaki kubanga nina obukulembeze obuli relevant tuwulirangayo Nakawa nti alese member parliament nti akoze alese etteeka private members bill situwulirangayo ontegera bulungi nnyo so amateeka tulina amateeka amakadde kubanga tetubadde better represented well represented. Number 2 omulimu oguntwala gwa oversight nti amateeka gano agakoleddwa waliwo rule of law ontegera bulungi gatekebwa mu nkola nti sente z'omuwa omusolo zitekeddwa mu nkola bagaba sente wane zigenda parliament ya appropriating a billion 5.9 za gaba mmere nesinakulaba member of parliament agamba nti amata abantu tebagafuna tunonyereza amata gatuuka sinakumulabayo nkugambye what wabera gap wogenda okuggala gap. I am a Christian spirit filled scholar the engineer. Most of the issues ezigenda okubeera deliberated in parliament ziri engineering related ebintu byonna bisinga kana kazinda lokondesede kano kali mu engineering ntebe kwotudde mulimu engineering kwolinye ettaka eryo it's a foundation kuliko engineering ekizimbe engineering kwegamba ebintu byonna bisinga the most critical and important profession in this world is engineering. Ngakati engineer ngenda kutwala obukugu bwange obukulaba nti wabeerawo value for money. Sente zonna owulira sente zizimba eddwaliro bazibbira mu mpapula sente zizimba oluguudo bazibbira mu mpapula kati ogenda kuleeta ba artists kuba nti be bajjudde mu parliament kubanga oli asomye law waliwo ebintu ebyaba lawyer nga takisobola kikolako naye nga kyetaaga ate engineer kugenda okulaba nti waliwo value for money. Kati as an engineer that's what I'm going to do. Ekyokubiri tuyina Kampala ina enguudo kilomita 2,110 ne kilomita zisinga za ttaka lukaaga zokka ze tamaking. Kampala evaamu omusolo ogwo gwonna batuyina ba MP tebasobodde kutembeeta nsonga za Kampala bulungi nnyo oba oluusi bagezezzaako ne twetaaga abantu abagenda okwogera nga balina authority. Ani alina authority mu engineering mu bannakampala nze ngenda okubeera ne authority lwaki amaani engineer. Tuyinayo balooya naye twetaagamu mixture of professions tugende tulobinga ebintu nga wendeeta ensonga nenjiguza bannange bannakampala naye nga tulina obuzibu wano babutegeera netusobola okulobingira wamu kula nti Kampala yatefuna mutamu omunene kugambye nti enguudo kilomita 2,110 lukaaga zokka zentamakinga kino kyekibuga kya Uganda mina kyenasoose okuyingira ne kaadi yakyo ye nupu ate nupu naye nabadde sigenda giyingira singa saitidwa mubaka nambuulira bulungi ebigendwa bya nupu. Opposition nungi mbadde ku TVM ne bangamba naye gwe wayingidde gundi wandibadde wetaaga okubeera mu pate ne bagamba nti listen kati pate eriwo ng'opposition y'amaanyi enupu ne bagamba ate opposition mulema gitunula obubi era ndivumirira nnyo government etwala opposition okuba embi. Opposition erina okuyamba okuteeka government mu line kuteeka ruling government mu line era opposition ngivumirira nnyo evaayo neetateeka government programs mu nkola ontegera bulungi nnyo nti wembeera wano nga mayor. I'm not opposition here. I have a government at my level. Nze mayor ontegera bulungi nnyo wembeera mayor wano nina ba councillors kati eyasimbawo nange gwe nawangula ye opposition wano Nakawa. So I am the government here. Nokulaba nti programs za government zitambula bulungi nnyo ate n'abalala basobole okulaba nti ono wa opposition ne government programs azikola ki tutuba tukwasiza obukulembeze ajja kusobola okutambuza emirimu obulungi naye ogenda n'osanga opposition ng'avumira government programs ate bonna bakone somero lya UPE bonna bakone mulimu omwana wa Mama Museveni. Number 1 webale nnyo abantu abamu tebagenda ku ideology bagenda kuyitawo kwagala kuyitawo which is not me. Mbadde mu Social Democratic Party ndoza mu Uganda tulimu nga abalina ebifo. Why do you think nasobola okukuba FDC? Ntegera bulungi nnyo nze mbadde wakamuli lwaki olowooza nasobola okuwangula FDC wano tewabadde anitira kunepankirako wano mu Nakawa. I am the mpologoma nze mpologoma ya Nakawa munsonyi wenza okukyeyogerera naye am a lion tozanyazanya gwe webogera tewalina omaagira nze lion yawa ne Nakawa n'olwensonga eyo wemba lion sijja kugamba nti nja kwekwata ku gundi ngenda n'ekibiina kubanga mmanyi kirina ebigendererwa ebirungi ontegera bulungi nnyo ate era twagala tubeere mu kibiina kino nga tulispektinga n'abalala tulina okubeera n'ekibiina nga kireeta kirina kyekireeta. I'm coming with my rich experience mu kibiina okwongera okuyamba abavubuka okubaluŋŋamya n'okulaba tutambuza bulungi abantu batulabe nga tuli relevant tubeera ab'omugaso. Olaba bakyaliwo ngenda nempulya bali eri waliwo ne bebawadde biliyoni 3 kwagala kunjja kunsaanyaawo. Bamafia ababbi b'ettaka bebaagala okunsanya balese biliyoni 3 nawulidde baziwadde abanesimbyewo nako batansedde okutandika okugamba bali mwezi yazzeeyo kuwa meya. No, I am MP material and as such I'm standing as honorable MP for Naka division. Wawulidde wano America yagambye nti China yakola ki? Yakola TikTok kubba ebyama. Ontegera bulungi nnyo. TikTok eno najekengera dda. Waliwo omwana wano yankolamu ka TikTok nendabira ddala ng'akola n'okusinga nze. Okitega akosa ddoboozi lyange nali demonstrating nga wano nti musala nepapakate muzako straight pan naye omwana abiddamu bulungi ne firimu n'enyuma. Kati oyo omuvubuka abaataamanya ddoboozi lyange lifaanana balowooza nti ye yakola ki yayogera. Kakati mu scientific election oyinza okujja wano nenkwata nenjogera ebigambo naye oli n'akozesa eddoboozi eddala n'ayogera ete ebigambo ebirungi okusinga ku nze oli n'abikozesa nti nze nabyogedde naye nga tesinze. Ontegera bulungi. So science alesemu ebirungo nti tulina okulonda abantu abali irrelevant naye nga tulowooza nti be bali relevant olwo ebigambo ebibavuddemu naye nga bakopperedde bikopperere. So twetaaga omuntu election whereby I'm going to interact with the recipient, with a person who is going to...
Yes, Nze Lion Yebuziga, Simon Chris Makanga. That was Mayor Balimwezi Ronald Iranga agala kubanga ajja kuba Mayor e Nakawa akiikira abantu beyo mu Parliament. According to ye agamba, yes, ye mpologoma ye Nakawa. Wabula maaso tujja kubanga twongera okwogera ku by'obufuzi naddala bigenda maaso wano mu ggwanga. Naye before that, let's take another break and we'll return with the topic of discussion. For now, we'll be right back.
Well, welcome back from that short break. Now, as we come back to the studios, we want to discuss about the COVID-19 task force that sat on Tuesday and agreed that certain economies in Uganda are meant to be opened, given that although Uganda is now facing a coronavirus upsurge, we are at 3,928 cases, and we're looking at a position where airports are going to be opened on 1st of October 2020, plus the borders, plus also churches. Now, churches have been given 70 people in a church per session that is going to be carried out. Now, the question that we have in our heads is, as we open airports, as we open borders, as we are charging people for a fee to test for COVID-19, as churches are being given 70 people only to be at a church per session, what are we doing to fight COVID-19? Because as we are opening these economies, we're looking at people coming through the country and going outside the country. We're looking at test kits being an issue in Uganda. Simon Chris, are we fighting coronavirus or are we bringing back coronavirus? And do we need to open these economies, especially the airport right now?
I think we're losing the fight against COVID-19 as a journalist.
And we are giving up.
And it looks like we are giving up and looks like we are pushing it to the public. It looks like the people on the forefront are losing it. And why am I saying this? If you come up and subject Ugandans to a 240,000 shillings in case you want to
Don't forget the 500 on top of the 240.
Yes, 245,000 Ugandan shillings in case you want to do COVID-19 test. That's a lot of money. And to me, we are losing. The people who are responsible for dealing with COVID-19, the task force and the Minister of Health, they are losing on that. However, the truth is we need to open some of the economies. COVID-19 is here to stay. We don't know when and where the vaccine will come out until we get one that's when we can say that, okay, we are now safe. But for as long as we still have COVID-19, the best way to have economies running is by reopening them and then getting to know how to live with COVID-19. Because just like we have HIV we are here in Uganda, but to how we can protect ourselves from getting AIDS. We twogerera kati abateke ebiragiro ebyo oba information mu mutwe, they are the ones who are negative like me. Ate abo abatagondera mateeka gobe biragiro ebyo bebo bolaba ku bitanda sawa zino. So that is the same we can relate with COVID-19. Nti batubulidde bwoba toyagala funa COVID-19, this is what you should do. And what are you supposed to do? Put on a mask, sanitize, social distance, then you will have oja kuyingira ensuubize ng'abasumba batyo tugamba. Then bwoba tobigondedde yegomwa agenda samba akabaketi wa kuchitanda. Simple as that. Even the president of Uganda came out and said, he based on the realities, saying that if 8 million people were involved in the recent past youth elections, that means the fight against COVID-19 is not about numbers, it's about the discipline. And yes, where do we get the discipline? By obeying to the SOPs.
3,112 cases in Uganda. I had run a little bit fast earlier on, but 3,112 cases in Uganda, and we are opening airports. I mean, Chris, even when our GDP is doing terrible, we're looking at a situation where the first case that we had in Uganda was from abroad. The person who entered the airport in Uganda entered with COVID-19 until Uganda naitao natuo radwa COVID-19 or day that we didn't have in the country. We're looking at a situation whereby people are going to be allowed to enter in the country. Multitudes of people that are going to be allowed to enter in the country. The aviation asked for 150 billion Ugandan shillings to inject back in the Air Force system before they start. Now, Tubaganira Center, we refused to give them the money. Now we are at a situation where I believe they need that money, Simon Chris. One, we need an enforcement that will be at the airport to check people 24/7 to make sure that whoever comes either has a certificate that shows that they're COVID-19 free, or they're being checked at the airport entrance. We need walk-in disinfectants in these airports. And aside from that, we also need quarantine centers.
Absolutely.
Now, the place where Uganda agenda kufuniramu in this particular session is that whoever comes in and is supposed to test kusasula 240 as a center nyingi nyo for the multitude of people who are going to come into the country. Now, imagine an Airbus takes, let's say, 32 people per Airbus. In the country, the traffic on Airbus is not going to be one Airbus per day. The moment we open our airport, we're going to have all these airlines coming to our airport. That means we're going to have multitudes of people coming to the country. The multitudes of people are going to pay 240,500 Ugandan shillings for the COVID-19 test, which only means the government again funa sente nyingi. The question is, what are they going to use that money for? Now, what I would advise them to do, as a center, if they get them, put it back in the airport. Kubanga, they have a lot of work to make sure that the people who are coming in the country do not increase the COVID-19 cases that we already have.
Initially, the civil aviation was asking for 150 billion shillings.
They deserve it.
To have the airport reopened. And it's not also justifiable enough. 150.
For me, it's justifiable.
150.
Even if they ask
we are not talking about
200,
millions.
It is.
We are talking about Chris, 150 billion
Chris,
Uganda.
Even if the aviation asked for 200, the government needs to find a place to give it to them if we are supposed to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. I am just giving you a situation of 1,000 people coming through Entebbe International Airport a day. You're not going to discriminate and say Airbus A, Airbus B, Airbus C, Muje. All Airbuses are going to be opened. People want to come back home. The tourism sector has to start working the moment they open the airports. And that means we are supposed to have workers at the airport. Simon Chris, we were ready to Tulina test kits. wabiwulidde.
You see, Latifa, let me tell you something.
Let me give you the scenario first of all before you come to your conclusion. Wabiwulidde tetulina test kits.
Absolutely.
Aviation needs to get test kits to test whoever comes in, whether they have a certificate or not. People have bribed to get the yellow fever certificate. They've bribed to get the yellow fever certificate. What does it show us is that they're going to bribe again to get the COVID-19 certificate to come into the country. So we need to have a task force that tests them at the exit of the Entebbe International Airport before they come into the country. Now, even when they're tested, okay, and say they're negative or they're positive, we need to have a quarantine center lay test 10 days before they can go into the community. All this needs money, and I don't want the Ministry of Health to become part and parcel and take over those operations. Njagala, the Aviation Authority, to take over their operations themselves, because that's where they can ensure that no more infections. Man, Chris, 3,112.
Latifa, yes, it's Changu, but at one point in time, Kenya was at that point, and apparently they have about 34,493, yes. And their economy is being reopened. Apparently, as we are talking, on the 12th of August, Kenya's airport was opened.
Now,
and cases are still rising. Uganda is at 3,000 and still counting, but our airport is still locked. There's need, by whatever means, we need to have the airport opened. Okay, we need to have different economies opened. Let people just need to know that this war is a self-battle.
We're going to live
between you and your life.
We are going to live with COVID-19 too. Have you compared the population of Uganda versus the population of Kenya? Have you compared the health system?
It's not about population.
Have you compared
it's not about
health system of Uganda versus the health system of Kenya? Simon Chris, while we are arguing these matters, I do not like comparison issues. Don't go into comparing them. It's okay.
We are all in
we
East
could
Africa.
be East Africa, but one country is doing way better than the other economically. You understand?
And what is failing us?
And corruption in Uganda is what is failing us. Corruption.
Isn't there corruption in Kenya?
It is corruption in Kenya, but again, what do our economies look like?
Have Kenyans been subjected to the 240?
Chris, what do our health facilities look like? We have already been struggling with our health facility as it is. Okay? Now, increase the number of COVID-19 cases versus the doctors that we have and the poor health facilities that we have. We are dead.
Do we have the money or we don't have the money?
That we don't have it budgeted the centers or not. They ate that money. We don't have it because they have eaten the money that is meant for COVID-19, and that's why
you cannot subject the majority to suffering because a few have embezzled the money. We cannot keep on suffering simply because of the mistakes or the vices conducted
Chris,
by
you're
the
a bad
few.
student. You know that.
No, I'm not a bad student.
You know why I'm saying
saying
you're a bad student.
I'm being
realistic.
realistic.
I have always told you, Simon Chris, stop playing the blame game. Okay? We are at a situation where the money has been eaten. What next is my question as Latifa.
What next? Let's open the economy.
To what solutions are there? I don't say the airports should not be reopened. They're reopened. We need that money as a country. Our economy needs that money. But how careful are we going to be in the reopening of the airports? How much money that Civil Aviation Authority needs to officially open the airport and make sure the spaces are big enough for people to have social distancing, one, to ensure that there's an enforcement team that makes sure that there's testing at the exit of the airport. There's masks that everybody has. If we have to give up the government of Uganda masks at the airport for exit and entry as a tourism attraction point, we better do that as a country.
If we take that line the way you're saying, we are going to drag this process we are going to drag it a little bit longer.
For me, my life is more important than a lot of things, Simon Chris.
Look, there's been already a lot of money that has been eaten. When you do an investigation in those people who own hotels, bokola okunoonyereza wa abantu gye batwala mu quarantine centers, you'll be surprised to see who owns those hotels. This is what should be done, in my humble opinion. This is what should be done. Let's open the economy, okay? If you're subjecting...
Let's start with the airport.
Let's start with the airport.
And then what next?
Gudeo Airport, okay? kkiriza abantu bayingire. Let them come with their certificate, COVID-19 certificate.
People have bribed to get yellow fever certificates.
Yes, that's where I'm heading.
What says they're not going to do
We
that?
have always had people walking with their yellow fever certificates and they are let into the country. Let whoever is coming into the country have that COVID-19 certificate. Bogo kumujeri no mugamba tesasule emitwalo 24 emirala. Nga neri javudde, you never know. Ayinza kuba yasasude sente for testing. That means you omuntu obo mutadde ku burden. Then omujjeyo omutwale mu hotel. Ne mu hotel jo mutwala agenda beera nga spending. Atenga wano we are saying that this is a disease that we should learn how to live with it.
Does that mean it should be brought into the
it,
country from outside because we are learning how to live with it? Does it mean that the COVID-19 cases in the country should be increasing because we're supposed to learn how to live with it?
Listen, I just told you what the president said. That it's not about the numbers, it's about the discipline. Bobo yagala kulaba mirambo mujja jiraba. Then kitegeeza noyo omuntu ave obweru. Don't subject that person to that money. Leka jene certificate ye agende for self-isolation wherever he or she feels like. Oba agenda waka yeka agende isolating.
Do you know the kind of indiscipline that we have as human beings?
Between me and you, we know all of these things are being created for money.
It hurts for money.
We're already hurting. And then no that means they're getting more money that they will not account for.
Kankuwe scenario, and let me give the person who is viewing us right now Kambawe scenario. The country has shot to 5,000 cases of COVID-19. Do you know how the Ministry of Health and the government of Uganda, that you're saying they're eating money now, do you know how much more money they're going to eat?
That's what I'm saying.
We will go back into another lockdown. Can we look for a solution that is permanent, for crying out? Nzenakoye lockdown. Truth is, Simon Chris, they should push and make sure that they put the airport at a standard whereby by the time someone passes, they have a walk-in disinfectant, they have a check-in where they check for your COVID-19, and you also come with your certificate. COVID-19 is not something that we play with.
Absolutely.
Okay? Our health system is already messed up as it is. The more cases we have, the more our health systems are going to bleed and struggle. All I'm saying is, can we have precautions set before we have an increase in the number of COVID-19 cases in the country? Okay, let the airports be opened, but let them give the money to the Civil Aviation Authority to create an environment where COVID-19 is going to be checked before it comes into it's all I'm asking.
I'm pretty sure that you've been following up on that Civil Aviation
SOPs,
story.
was it TKU?
You've talked to the PRO Civil Aviation before. And what reason was he giving? How is he justifying the 150 billion shillings?
The way they justified that money is that the Civil Aviation Authority have not worked for the longest time. We all know every economy was shut down for the longest time. I am coming, Simon Chris. They haven't been working for all that time. And as they had stopped working, the airport was undergoing a certain level of construction and reconstruction. Okay?
Did they have a budget before?
They did. Or they did have a budget. For more? They did have a budget. But what happened was, when the COVID-19 happened, everything was shut down. Even the release of money was shut down. So they were put at a situation where they were stuck. Now, when the airport was about to be open, his explanation was, we haven't been making money for all this time. If we're supposed to open, the problem is that now we are supposed to open in the COVID-19 situation and make sure the SOPs are being followed. Sente ziriwa to instate the COVID-19 SOPs. That 15 billion may sound a lot, but for a Civil Aviation Authority company, we're talking about an Airbus. We're not talking about a taxi or a bus, for crying out loud. The thing is, what ought to be done is, out of the 150 billion that you're asking for, how much are you guys going to make and put back into the treasury? Because once we launch it to you, let's give it to you, let's give half of that money to you, Civil Aviation Authority, as a loan. Work for it, make money, because we have Airbuses that are now going to be continental as Uganda. They're going to fly outside the country, East Africa, Bahrain, Asia, Europe. We're going to fly. Make that money, bring it back into the treasury. Let it be given as a loan, but they need that money.
I'm a bit shocked and a bit surprised. Like, you sound like you don't live in Uganda.
Oh,
you'll be surprised.
I know the kind of corruption in the country.
You will be surprised that 150 billion taxpayers' money, if it's given to a civil aviation, you will be surprised nti bajagulako ki disinfectant kino kyoyitamu ne kikufuuyira baguleko ebidomola bya sanitizer bibyo then endala tojja mmanya we zijja kuyita that money.
And that's why I have
civil aviation works under a certain budget, okay? And I don't think they can just fight for the 150 billion shillings that they need for them to reopen the airport. That's a whole lot of money.
See, when civil aviation says they want that money, I've already given a solution that makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know about you. Baba Wenga loan. If money is given to you as a loan, Simon Chris, you don't play with that money. You don't play with the money just like that. Because you know I have to pay it back.
Not in Uganda.
Then we need to have a system that holds people accountable for the money that they have asked. If Civil Aviation Authority has asked for 150 billion Ugandan shillings, give us accountability on each and every penny. Now, instead of saying...
You've seen people give accountability. Baguze vitanda. Baguze mufaliso gwa milioni nya.
We get 40 million.
Mufaliso gwa gold
But we also
We've seen people give accountability. Nga baguze a pen. Nga baguze pen ya milioni atano.
We came to find out that the 40 million that was bought with furniture, they took the money and put back into their accounts. See, if you follow up things, you find out where the money has gone. You find out who the thieves are.
And what happens to them?
Let them look, let them give Civil Aviation Authority that money. They're opening the economy. Babawe Sentezo. With Babawe Sentezo, accountability needs to be done. Follow up needs to be done, and let them give it to them as the loan. But just this asula. Half of it needs Bajazi Sasula. You know,
I don't know why you're so confident about that.
We have been lenient on the thieves in our country.
Okay.
We have been lenient on the level of accountability we've had them hold. It is time we become lions in protecting our country. It is time the president proves to us that at this point I am fighting corruption and fight it for real. Don't catch the small fish, go for the big fish as well. But quite cut off their heads if you have to.
All right, let's take a break and catch the big fish and then we'll return.
abalamuzi babagamba nti if the incumbent president frustrates all democratic means to leave power, temusibayo muntu n'omu kutwiza. This is why Besigye is released. Museveni ekibi kyalina talina mawulire. Nawandika n'ekitabo kyange the role of which could have been in malicious society sapule njijjamu
noyingire sabo
katonda wa bujja nze katonda w'obujja bw'oba olaga eri sapule twekitwala omusajja omubbi bamujja ewuwe ewaka kabanga lyezi ne bamujja ewuwe ewaka yabadde mu ttooyi naye tebamukkiriza na tusanitize bamutadde butese mu piikaavu ba mu state house naye omukyayina bwe yawulidde nti ono bamukutte yeesize kiwi yayitiddeko yadduse ng'omuddugavu.
Bampita Dr. Franklin Mondo Mugisha wano ku STV biri ku makyakera nange nga twogera ku nsonga ez'enjawulo engeri tusobola okwezimba mu ggwanga lyaffe engeri tusobola okuzimba gye tubeera gye tuva wategedde obwavu lwa kibuluma mikwano gy'abaavu baani otambula otya osula otya okusalawo okwo okw'obulamu kutandikira ku nfunayo emikwano gy'abagaga n'abaavu tusobola ogitegeera no ku STV tugenda kwogera ku nsonga z'abaslay queen tutambula tutya kukyusa omulembe gw'abawala baffe kubanga bafuuka babuvunaanyizibwa era nga bakozi nga banoonyi ba kikumi tugenda kwogera ku bakanyama bazimba batya emibiri y'omubiri bwe guli mu ssente oba bwe bulamu bwe twetaaga omukazi tasobola kuleka musajja w'emmotoka mukaaga mbwakute akwate 6 pack amufune mubatambule naye wano ku STV Big Network. See ya.
yogati ntunda ennaanansi byonna babeera baagala okunywa amata abanyumirwa okunywa ku yogati ne bakuuma omubiri ng'ogwange nga kuva ku makya maze gutunda emitwalo 6 zibula tudde
bannange ng'omusayi ng'okola nnyo nnyo
era kyevola bansanyuse
byebyo kugambye zino komodo zawano tubeera nazo.
Nze musiraamu w'ennyama eggaba.
Musiraamu w'ennyama eggaba?
Ya.
Akabiina kalina kapapaala kapapaala akabiina ku kapapaala.
Well, the corruption in this country seems to be something that we will be discussing over and over and over again on this set, because everything that is passed in the country seems to be passed under budget. Well, I mean, what is happening in the country? Do we need to steal even the smallest coin given to the poorest person? Do we need to have a Robin Hood in this country? The question that we've been asking. Now, let me go through a few of your comments on Facebook. Thank you for being part of the show, and then we will be jumping straight to Genesis to tell us what is happening in the business world. Now, Samuel Nyongeza says money making. It seems to be very mad. Oh, Jesus should help people to know the situation that people undergo through. That means, can we stop stealing money, because making it is not the easiest right now. We also have Joshua Walcott, who says the national elections will be worse. Instead of solving the problems, they are passing on more police, LDUs, making reshuffles in police in particular places. Now he says, instead of solving the problems, we are now looking at passing on more police and LDUs to man the elections. So we are looking at how to curb the problems instead of creating the solutions. Now, when we look at what some of you have said, Yaba Councillor Naguru, I say hello. Kata Ronald, thank you for being part of the program. Mariam Thatcher, she says it's like voting is for selected few Ugandans, and some of them are not going to be put on the voter register regardless of what they are to do. Now, Ak Takuba said, failure from government intelligence services to fully investigate this case is deliberate. Now he's talking about the case that we're talking about, the Muslim clerics, and the fact that the investigations on this matter seems to not have been fully done. And when we're looking at the other people who say, finally, Obi Martinez says 100 billion taxpayers missing. Uganda Zabu, Chitufu, Uganda Zabu. Now we'll be looking at these comments and more as they come into our social media platforms. Keep bringing them on, keep talking to us, and we will be communicating your message to the viewers out there. That means you have become a part of this program. Genesis, how are you doing, darling?
I'm good, Latifa. How are you? Good
I'm wonderful. Now, Genesis, before you came in, me and Simon Chris Makanga were discussing the fact that the COVID-19 task force in Uganda have been discussing a number of issues in opening Uganda's economy. Now, the most important things are the two noted ones, or three. We have the opening of the Entebbe International Airport, we have the opening of schools, and then we have the opening of churches. Now, Genesis, I want us to talk a little bit about the opening of especially the airport. When we open airports in Uganda, Genesis, we're looking at money coming in, right? Yes. We're looking at Uganda making more money. But then we're looking at the risk of Ugandans' COVID-19 numbers going at a spike. Higher. What do you have to say about that?
Okay, thank you, Latifa. That is a very good question to a business-minded person like me. Now, going back to that question, Latifa, we all know the importance of these airports being open, and we know what they deliver to the country. And then we also know the economic status of the country right now. Let us not rule it out, yeah? COVID-19 is here. We are going to have to live with it. We are not going to pass it. We are not going to get miraculous vaccines that are going to probably create magic here. We have to learn to live with it. The same way we learned how to live with Ebola, We learned how to live with HIV/AIDS and so many other sexually transmitted diseases. We learned to live with cholera. This is another pandemic that has come. It has come very much stronger because we were not ready for it. But we are going to have to live with it. And we are not going to let the economy of the country literally run to the dogs and do nothing about it. You can do social distancing even in an aeroplane. People are doing that in taxis and the country is still moving on. What is the difference? And then the tourism sector in the country is literally dying. And the tourism sector is one sector in Uganda that is bringing in very good money. So we need these airports open, and I'm positive that this is a good move.
Well, thank you very much. Coming from Genesis, we believe that it's a good move because she talks money and we need money. Let's go to you, Genesis. Give us the details that we need.
Okay, thank you, Latifa. Good morning. Once again, it is the Business Angle with me. I hope you're having a good day, and I hope you have enjoyed Latifa and Chris take you through the morning 7 to 9. But right now, it is the Business Angle, and let's talk a little bit of business and money. Now, Uganda's business sector has had a whole lot of evolution this year, coming from the pandemic that literally reduced all the businesses or nothing at all going on in the country. And then we had amendments of particular bills. On the 31st of March 2020, Uganda's Finance and Economic Development Minister, that is Matthias, he's called Matthias Kasita, I beg your pardon, Matthias Kasaija. I hope I've pronounced it perfectly well. He tabled the tax amendment bill. Now, this was passed to Parliament and later assented by the President of Uganda. Some of the bills that were looked at are the income tax, the value-added tax, the excise duty, and the stamp duty. These have affected the business sector both positively and negatively. We are quite short of time, but I had a lot that I wanted us to cover today. Tomorrow, when you come tomorrow, I want you to be ready to look at some of the ways that these bills, the amendment of the tax bill, has affected the small businesses, especially in this COVID period. We shall also be looking at what the URA has to say about this and what are their issues, thinking, what do they think about the amendment of tax? Do they think it's going to work for the business sector, or it is actually not going to work? How are the Kasita people taking it, and how has the business person, the low business person, taken it? Before I run out of studio, let us look at the forex rates today. The dollar is at 3,679 and selling at 3,689. The pound is at 4,904 and selling at 4,917. The euro is at 4,377 and selling at 4,389. The Kenyan shillings are at 33 and still selling at 34. The Tanzanian shillings are at 1.58 and still selling at 1.59. And lastly, the South African rand, which is selling and buying at 221. Thank you so much. Let me take you back to studios with Latifa.
Well, thank you very much, Genesis, for that report. Now let's go for a break and we'll be back with sports.
abalamuzi babagamba nti if the incumbent president frustrates all democratic means to leave power, temusibayo muntu n'omu kutwiza. This is why Besigye is released. Museveni ekibi kyalina talina mawulire. Nawandika n'ekitabo kyange the role of which could have been a malicious society sapule njijjamu noyingira sabo katonda wa bujja nze katonda w'obujja bw'oba olaga eri sapule twegitwala omusajja omubbi bamujja ewuwe ewaka kabanga lyezi ne bamujja ewuwe ewaka yabadde mu ttooyi naye tebamukkiriza na tusanatayizi bamutadde butese mu piikaavu ba mu state house naye omukyayina bwe yawulidde nti ono bamukutte yeesinze kiwi yayitidde kombo yadduse ng'omuddugavu
bampita Dr. Franklin Mondo Mugisha wano ku STV biri ku makyakera nange nga twogera ku nsonga ez'enjawulo engeri tusobola okwezimba mu ggwanga lyaffe engeri tusobola okuzimba gye tubeera gye tuva wategedde obwavu lwa kibuluma mikwano gy'abaavu baani otambula otya osula otya okusalawo okwo okw'obulamu kutandikira ku nfunayo emikwano gy'abagaga n'abaavu tusobola ogitegeera no ku STV tugenda kwogera ku nsonga z'abaslay queen tutambula tutya kukyusa omulembe gw'abawala baffe kubanga bafuuka babuvunaanyizibwa era nga bakozi nga banoonyi ba kikumi tugenda kwogera ku bakanyama bazimba batya emibiri y'omubiri bwe guli mu ssente oba bwe bulamu bwe twetaaga omukazi tasobola kuleka musajja w'emmotoka mukaaga mbwakute akwate 6 pack abufune mbubatambule naye wano ku STV Big Network. See ya.
Hello, good morning once again and welcome back from the business angle with the Genesis and that slide break. Well, you're still watching the first show and my name is Simon Chris Makanga. Iranga kano ke kasera batugenda okubanga twegatibwako Marjorie okutubulira biki ebigenda maaso mu nsiike ebyemizannyo. Marjorie wasuze otya nnyo nyabo?
Nasa bulungi Chris ogamba otya ne mwa buli omu ali ku STV.
Nze ndi bulungi.
Kirungi nnyo wabula njagala kwaniriza mu nsi eyaffe ebyemizannyo gye tuyita ensi ffe tubeera mu nsi yaffe Chris namwe yombera mu nsi yammwe naye nga waneno mu ggwanga bingi nnyo ebigenda maaso mu ggwanga ne bweru w'eggwanga ngenda kuba mbikutegeeza wabula gwe nkusaba ekintu kimu tova ku STV obe mumanyi ate otambule nga oli mumanyi waneno mu ggwanga ekigenda maaso olunaku olw'eggulo Chris we bwawungeredde nga FIFA evuddeyo yayingidde mu nsonga za Vipers ne Express wakati w'omuzanyi Disan Galuwango omuvubuka ono tumanyi nti yazanyira mu Express zone ewedde ate n'alabika bulungi nnyo oba olyawo ensonga lwaki Vipers basobola okubanga bamwettanira ne bamutwala naye nga bw'omanyi wane waffe e Uganda ebintu ebimu tebikolebwa in the right way or in a straight line nti omuvubuka ono yali akyayina contract ne banaffe aba Express ate n'addamu n'asayininga ne banaffe aba Vipers FC ekitegeeza nti tekyali kirungi banaffe aba Express beekubira enduulu era tulabye nga Federation ku mulundi guno evuddeyo era we twogerera Disan Galuwango ono alina okusasula banaffe aba Express akasente koyinza okuyita abamu bakayita akasente naye sente empitirivu nnyo Chris obukadde 25 ng'abuwa bannaffe club gye yava eya Express kitegeeza ki eri club y'abannaffe aba Viper kitegeeza ki eri club y'abannaffe aba Express mu nsonga eno tuweebuuza ani afunyemu Viper yefunyemu Express yefunyemu oba omuzanyi yafunyemu kirekawa Disan Galuwango nga omuzanyi ate kye kituleetera okuddayo mu bazanyi baffe ab'enjawulo nti tulina okuba abeegendereza bw'oba omanyi okyalina contract ne club mwoli sooka omalirize contract nga tonnagenda mu ndala kitegeeza club mulina okuba nga mwesootinga bw'oba wakutwala muzannyo era twebuuliza wano ku STV oba n'abalabi abali eyo nti mu mbeera eno gwe nga CEO wa club wali osayininga omuzannyo ono wategeera history ye ne club mwavudde ebibuuzo bingi nnyo tujja kuba tubikuwa gye bujjako katono awo naye nga omuvubuka ono Disan Galuwango akusasema akasente ako $25,000 so twebuuza Disan yagenda ozisasula oba bannaffe aba Vipers be bagenda okubanga basasula ensimbi zino ebiwe bitowe biri ate wetugendako mu club y'abannaffe aba KCCA omuvubuka bamuyita Kato musonyiweko omuvubuka ye Kato Samuel omuvubuka oyo gwolaba ku STV yo wetwogerera club ya Rwanda APR boyinza okuyita ba Champions League nti balaze obwetaavu oba balaze interest mu muvubuka ono naye bannaffe aba KCCA tebannaba kubanga balaga nti omuvubuka ono bayetegefu okubanga bamuta ava erugogo kitegeeza ki emyaka 21 okubanga ava mu club eno akasimbi kalina okuteekako sign on fee $5,000 ate nga bannaffe aba KCCA singa baba bakkiriza ddiiro eno omuvubuka ono okubanga bamweggyako $10,000 kitegeeza KCCA egenda okutandika season ng'eri 360 million Ugandan shillings richer that is in case bwe babakkiriza omuvubuka ono okubanga atambula naye bw'oba weegendereza omusomesa wa KCCA Michael Roy Mutebi tannaba kubanga akkiriziganya naye omuvubuka already ye agamba mwetegefu okubanga atambula so kitegeeza omutima gwe tegukyali lugogo tekukyali ku ttiimu y'abannaffe aba KCCA naye kuffe ng'abaana byamizannyo kuffe nga bali mu nsene y'ebyemizannyo tuba tufunamu we tuba tutandise okulaba mu league eziri mu East Africa okubanga batandise okutunda liigi yaffe eya Uganda nga mwe baagala okujja abazannyi kiba kituwa credit kiba kiwa abazannyi baffe credit n'okubanga bagenda oku exploring the outside world out of the Uganda Premier League ate nga n'omuvubuka Yahaya Kakoza wali mu tiimu y'abanaffe aba Express ono naye akoze comeback season eno simanyi lwaki abaali basamireko mu tiimu eno ya Express baagala kubanga bakomawo sikitegeera kiriyo ndowooza okuva obukulembeze bwe bwakyuka okuva Express wetobodde okubanga eteekawo structures mu club yayo abantu basobodde okubanga bakuba yutani bakoma omuvubuka ono ava mu club eya Proline gye tumanyi nti azanyiddeko n'omuvubuka Paul Mbazira njagala kuyisiza mu katini nti ono yeegase ku club y'abanafu aba Bull Bidco okuva wali mu Edgar Youth Academy jukira Edgar eno esambira mu kibinja ekyokusatu gyinza okuyita 3rd division ebisingakawo ojja kuba obifuna select sport ekintabuli ky'ebyemizannyo naye ate wali eri ebweru w'eggwanga njagala kuyisiza mu katini mu nsi eya tennis gyoyinza abasinga bw'otwogera ku muzannyo guno gwa tennis oba otegeera nnyo the William family bw'olaba ku STV yo bamuyita Serena Williams olunaku olw'eggulo yawangudde gyoyinza okuyita nti yataddewo ate rekodi empya mwennyini yeeterawo endala ate yagimenye wabula ekyewuuzibwa mukulu we Venus ye yasobodde okubanga akubwa mawulire ga si malungi ku muto we naye ate nga mukulu we obaolyawo yawangudde wabula n'olunaku olwaleero UEFA Nations League agenda kuba atojjera of course empiira mingi nnyo naye gutunuuliddwa nnyo mupiira gwa banaffe aba Germany nga batunka ne banaffe aba Spain wali gugenda kuba mu ggwanga eryaffe erya Germany sawa 3:45 ojja kuba ogulaba UEFA Nations Cup eno ezanyibwa tiimu eziri mu association egatta UEFA teams zino naye nga basajja gwata tournament eno yatandika 2018 era Portugal beba champion abayina ekikopo abayina tournament eno tugenda kuba tubalaba ndoza sigenda kubanga nsukakaawo tukwatagane sawa 5 tovaako good morning
weewaawo tweyanziza nnyo Marjorie olwokubanga otukala kasendo ka speed keeko naye tweyanziza nnyo tweyanzege olwokutwebyo ebifa mu nsiiki ebyemizannyo for now katugende mu kuwumulako tukomawo ne Latifa tube nga tubasiibula.
abalamuzi babagamba nti if the incumbent president frustrates all democratic means to leave power temusibayo muntu n'omu ku treason. This is why Besigye is released. Museveni ekibi kyalina talina mawulire nawandika n'ekitabo kyange the role of witchcraft in a malicious society sapule njijjamu
noyingire sabo
katonda wa bujja nze katonda w'obujja bw'oba olaga eri sapule togitwala omusajja omubbi bamujja ewuwe ewaka kabanga lyezi ne bamujja ewuwe ewaka yabadde mu ttooyi naye tebamukiriza na tusanatayizi bamutadde butesi mu piikaavu ba mu state house naye omukyayina bwe yawulidde nti ono bamukutte yeesize kiwi yayitiddeko yadduse ng'omuddugavu.
Bampita Dr. Franklin Mondo Mugisha wano ku STV biri ku makyakera nange nga twogera ku nsonga ez'enjawulo engeri tusobola okwezimba mu ggwanga lyaffe engeri tusobola okuzimba gye tubeera gye tuva wategedde obwavu lwa kibuluma mikwano gy'abaavu baani otambula otya osula otya okusalawo okwo okw'obulamu kutandikira ku nfuna yo emikwano gy'abagagga n'abaavu tusobola ogitegeera wano ku STV.
tumemaliza program ya leo, na kwa saizi nimerudi tu kuambia mpaka hapa naonekana inatosha, na mpaka hapa nafaa kutoka kwenye studios ni kwende zangu. Lakini kabla sijatoka, I'd like to thank JB Fashions for dressing me up. His number is 0758 597-322-0758-597-322. Mpigie simu akuvalishe the way I'm looking like and look good. For now, I'd like to say bye-bye and thank you so much for being part of this program, especially for those who brought in their comments. Keep bringing in your comments. Tomorrow we are coming in again. Don't forget to say what you need to say. Give us your opinions.
All right, thank you so much, guys, for being that and being such an awesome audience from the time we started the show till now that we are going to be walking out of the studios. My name is Simon Chris Makanga, and may the good Lord of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob be with you not until we meet once again tomorrow for yet another edition of the First Show. Well, we've worked with an amazing team, and we had Don the Drone and Mansour on camera. We had Husna Afet and Adams Mayambala as our senior producers, as well as Jeff in the control room. For now, I am known to...
What you're going to do next. What's the next program?
Well, coming up is Face to Face, and this time around we have Mr. Job Mr. Job. That is Mr. Job Katuramu. He's going to be coming in for the face-to-face show, and then you don't need to miss out that because he wants to represent in Nakawa West in the August House. For now, I am not around.